Hey there, movie lovers. Welcome back to Rocky Watches Movies. Today we're buckling up for a high-stakes journey into the film that launched an entire genre, 1970s Airport. This disaster epic was a massive box office hit and kicked off a wave of star-studded disaster thrillers throughout the 70s. But behind the turbulence and tense drama lies a cargo hold full of fascinating stories. So fasten your seatbelts and stow your trays as we get ready for takeoff with 20 things you never knew about Airport. The film was a star-studded big-screen adaptation of Arthur Haley's widely popular 1968 bestseller. The book was inspired by an incident of domestic terrorism involving a passenger plane which occurred in 1962, when Continental Airlines Flight 11, traveling from O'Hare Airport, Chicago to Kansas City, crashed, killing all 45 passengers and crew on board. The investigation concluded that the crash was caused by a suicide bombing, carried out as an act of insurance fraud. The bomber was Thomas G. Doty, a resident of a Kansas City suburb. FBI agents uncovered that Doty, a married man with a 5-year-old daughter, had taken out a $150,000 life insurance policy. His death would have triggered an additional $150,000 in supplementary coverage, some bought at the airport. Facing trial for armed robbery, Doty smuggled 6 sticks of dynamite onto the flight in a briefcase and detonated them in the toilet, hoping the $300,000 payout would go to his family. But since his death was ruled a suicide, the policy was voided and the claim denied. In Haley's novel, the bomber D.O. Guerrero never has his first name revealed. The name Dom, used by his wife Inez in the coffee shop scene, was introduced solely for the film. The book also wove a range of social issues into the narrative, including the mental stress and depression suffered by air traffic controllers and the controversial sale of travel insurance near ticket counters, which benefited insurers and airports alike. These themes were downplayed in the film to keep the focus on the main plot. Only one Boeing 707 was used for the film, with the tail number N324F, a 707-349C leased from Flying Tiger Line. It featured the fictional Trans-Global Airlines titles and tail markings. The aircraft later crashed while operating a Trans-Brazil Flight 801, a cargo service approaching Sao Paulo on the 21st of March 1989. 3 crew and 22 people on the ground were killed when it crashed into their houses. Trans-Global Airlines, the fictional airline created for the film, lived on for many years. It was common to spot props bearing the TGA logo in other Universal productions, such as the Andromeda Strain and on series like Ironside. The 1968 novel was also partly inspired by Chicago's O'Hare International Airport and by the city's infamous 1967 snowstorm, which brought 23 inches of snow. Most of the filming, though, took place at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, chosen because they needed snow for the shoot, but that's not what they got. There ended up being an unusual lack of snow that year, which forced the filmmakers to use a lot of fake snow. Burt Lancaster, who top-billed the film alongside Dean Martin, earned a substantial sum from his contract, which included a share of the profits. Despite this financial windfall, Lancaster described the movie as the worst piece of junk ever made. He admitted that he only agreed to star in the film in exchange for the studio's agreement to finance several non-commercial projects he was interested in. Lancaster went so far as to call it a joke that the film received any award nominations at all. Although he played a pilot, Dean Martin suffered from a fear of flying and travelled to Minneapolis by train to film his scenes. This fear, often called aerophobia, was so pronounced that it even affected his friendship with Frank Sinatra, who, despite their close bond, would occasionally tease Martin by exploiting his anxiety. Maureen Stapleton also feared flying and always opted for trains or ships. She also refused to use elevators, and while appearing in the film, her character's feet remained firmly on the ground. The film marked the final project for composer Alfred Newman. As his health was deteriorating, he was unable to conduct the recording sessions for the score, which were instead overseen by Stanley Wilson. Sadly, he passed away before the film's release. Posthumously, Newman received his 45th Academy Award nomination for this score, the most ever received by a composer until 2011, when John Williams broke his record. If you've never heard of Alfred Newman before this, I'm sure you've heard one of his pieces thousands of times. He composed the music that plays with the studio logo at the beginning of 20th Century Fox's productions. While filming, director George Seaton contracted pneumonia, prompting Henry Hathaway to step in as director while Seaton recovered. Hathaway took charge of filming the exterior scenes. When production costs spiraled well over budget, Universal chairman Lou Wasserman instructed producer Ross Hunter to shut the project down. Undeterred, Hunter pressed on and completed the film. Universal executives anticipated a flop and premiered it in numerous markets, hoping to recoup losses before negative word of mouth could harm its box office potential. Contrary to expectations, the film was a huge success, generating substantial profits. Hunter openly claimed that the film had covered Universal's salary for several years, an assertion that earned Wasserman's lasting resentment and ultimately led to Hunter's contract not being renewed. George Kennedy was offered the opportunity to reprise and humorously spoof his iconic role as Joe Petroni in the 1980 comedy Airplane, a film that parodied the disaster movie genre to which Airport belonged. However, Kennedy chose to turn down the role. The cigar-chomping character Joe Petroni was actually inspired by the real-life TWA Director of Maintenance, Roy Davis, who was known for his ever-present cigar. Roy had aspired to be a pilot for TWA, but was offered a mechanic's role instead in 1942. In recognition of his significant contributions to commercial aviation, Roy was awarded a special Federal Aviation Administration Certificate of Recognition. He passed away in 1998, and in 1999 he was honored with induction into the Arizona Aviation Hall of Fame. Patty Paulson, who played Joan, one of the stewardesses aboard the Golden Argosy, made her only film appearance in Airport. At the time, she was a working stewardess for American Airlines. Paulson earned her role by winning a stewardess beauty contest, one of the prizes for which was a part in the film. The costly set representing the entire interior of the 707 was left standing at Universal Studios and was eventually joined by an even more expensive airliner set, the front half of a 747 interior, built in 1974 for Airport 1975. Together, these two sets became known as Stage 747 on the studio lot. These sets were amortized across many productions before being dismantled around 2002, when the space was converted into a workshop. In the scene where Mel Bakersfeld and Commissioner Ackerman argue over closing the airport, a model of Boeing's proposed supersonic transport with TWA livery can be seen in the conference room. Once hailed as the future of air travel, the SST ultimately never progressed beyond the design stage. The film earned Helen Hayes an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her portrayal of an elderly stowaway. It also received 9 additional Oscar nominations, including another Best Supporting Actress nod for Maureen Stapleton, Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Best Sound, Best Original Score, Best Art Direction, and Best Costume Design. The film holds a special place in cinematic history as the final feature film for 3 distinguished actors: Van Heflin, Jesse Royce Landis, and Thomas Brown Henry. Each of these performers brought a wealth of experience and gravitas to the production. In January 1969, the Minnesota Employment Service began accepting applications for extras in the film, offering $15 per night plus $3 for a food break. Women were asked to describe themselves as collegiate, chic and statuesque, matronly, or mod. The production also received state permission to ask about race, aiming for crowd scenes that reflected a typical city's diversity. They received thousands of applications. The film was released on the 5th of March 1970 and went on to earn over $128 million worldwide. It became one of just a few films up until that point to gross over $100 million at the North American box office. A list which includes Gone with the Wind, The Sound of Music, The Graduate, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Airport spawned 3 sequels, each less successful than the last. Airport 1975, which came out in 1974, made $103 million worldwide. Airport 77, that actually came out in 1977, made just over $90 million. And the Concorde Airport 79 from 79 made only $65 million. And there you have it, folks. You now know a little bit more about Airport. If you enjoyed the video, which I presume you did as you got this far, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos coming to Rocky Watches Movies. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.